For us, it's all about looking at an industry that we go after where we can drive disruption and drive technology leadership.
Why are you building a consumer story for Qualcomm as well? Like, this is a business question. Why the play on consumer?
Every consumer is extremely aware today. Consumer knows what they want. Even when you think about a consumer that is, or an employee that is walking into an enterprise, knows exactly what laptop they want.
I had a really old computer at home, and I remember playing Road Rash on. And I still remember the dial-up modem I had. You've been around since even before that. To see it go from there to here must have been phenomenal. I would still love to know your predictions on where this AI race is going.
In general, with AI, there's going to be so much personalization, and there isn't a single industry that I believe is not going to get affected by AI in a positive way.
How do you think privacy will evolve with personalization? Lovely. Kedar, thank you so much for joining us. You know, I'll tell you a very interesting story about me and Qualcomm. So I remember one of my first phones, right? I'm not going to mention the name of the phone, but I was looking through the specs. You know, there was this era when I was young, and everyone, when they're young, they're comparing phones, and you don't have too much money, and you're like, should I buy this one or should I buy this one? And I remember reading about this thing called the Snapdragon, right? And I thought that was a damn cool name. And for a very long time, I thought the company's name was Snapdragon. And I was like, yeah, this is how the Snapdragon, this is how the Snapdragon. And then finally, you know, as you age, you learn, you know, the story behind companies. So then I realized, oh, well, Qualcomm makes Snapdragon. So I think it's an absolute honor to have you here and have you, who's been in this space for so long. You've been working in computing for, you know, since I was a young toddler. To have you here and enlighten me and our audience on, you know, what exactly Qualcomm is doing. What is this entire AI race going to look like for businesses like Qualcomm? Very keen to understand this. But I want to start with your story. I think this story is useful for everybody watching because everyone wants to work at one of the large companies, right? One of the large semiconductor companies or chips companies or even the FANGs. And I think Qualcomm is definitely up there. So I want to know your story. How did you get here in the first place?
First, Varun, thanks for having me. I watched a ton of your podcasts and stuff, very impressive. So what you've done at this, I know you're being very humble, but it's incredible. In fact, it's my privilege to be able to join you here. You know, as you said, it's obviously very exciting to be at Qualcomm. More so being at the current position that we are, it's even more exciting given what we're doing in disrupting some of the industries. Personally, for me, I've been at Qualcomm since 2007. I've been there a long time. I started with, ironically, in the PC space. If you remember back then, there have been a few attempts at this. And since then, I moved to mobile. I ran the mobile product management for many years. And then most recently, I am with the compute and gaming team. I run that business. So it's pretty exciting. I think Qualcomm's a great place for us. And you know, I'm sure we'll be talking more about
what does one study? What does one study to have this career path? Well, and what interests did you have growing up to eventually end up here?
You know, in general, background-wise, obviously, I'm an engineer. I'm a very traditional engineer. I did my engineering, started as an engineer, moved into doing product management. I did my MBA. Exactly a true way you go from engineering to product management to strategy to leading the business. So very
Indian
typical.
Poster boy.
Exactly what you know, most parents I think don't want you to do is follow a particular path. But it's exciting. I mean, it's great to. It's what excites me. I've been always more on the marketing business side always. From that perspective, it's great. But you know, at Qualcomm, it's fun. It's you know, it's really exciting in terms of you know, at heart, we're a technology company, right? When you think about it, we always think of technology. We always think of innovation. You know, we always have tough choices to make at any given time in terms of what we do. We'll always err on the side of leading with technology. So any of the products that you think about at Qualcomm, you'll see our messaging is much less marketing and a lot more technology. In fact, to the point where we'll only talk about tech a lot more. So, but overall, it's exciting. I think, you know, we're an R&D company and we pride ourselves in what we do.
So tell me one thing, right? Everybody watching knows Qualcomm is a big company. And the only mystery for most of these people is what happens inside Qualcomm. Like do you guys actually go pick up sand and eventually make things? Or, you know, is there like a process where you have a bunch of third-party manufacturers? What does the company actually do? If you had to describe what Qualcomm does in like, you know, a few sentences.
Sure. At heart, Varun, like I said, we're a communications company is how we started. We started.
What does communications mean?
Communications means starting with modems. So
Okay.
anything that communicates, and now we're in the age of AI. So obviously we're leveraging that off of a communications company based off of AI. But we started with modems. For audience that don't know, it's what connects to your cellular services in the backend. And we started with that, and it was a natural progression for us to be able to do the first technology, which was called CDMA back in the day, code division multiplexing. And our founders started with that. They led with technology to drive it into feature phones, and obviously now they've evolved into smartphones over the years. Technology has evolved. Like now we refer to all of that as 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, and that's the technology we work on. Just migrating off of that or transitioning from that, it was a natural progression to go into mobile devices and phones. And as you think about that, we've now almost diversified ourselves into many businesses, right from whether it is automotive, whether it is IoT, industrial IoT. We're obviously in cell phones with mobile, in XR. We're obviously in PCs now in a big way that we're entering. We're in gaming. So for us, it's all about looking at an industry that we go after where we can drive disruption and drive technology leadership, right? So exact same thing what we're going to do in PCs. And we'll talk about it more. But if you think about what we've done, I'll give you a simple example, right? Back in the day, when you think about mobile phones, you wouldn't get a very good GPS signal when you're in the middle of a very dense urban area. You couldn't figure out where you're going.
Yeah.
And one of the ways we solved that problem is you had multiple GPS satellites, and we triangulated that. We had Wi-Fi positioning stuff. We triangulated all of that. So now when you think about it, where do you think of an Ola driver or somebody calling and say, boss, I don't have a GPS signal. I don't know where you are exactly. It doesn't happen, right? So when you think about the kind of innovation that has happened, I'll give you another example. Think of cameras, right? When you drive the migration of cameras in mobile phones, and almost replacing DSLR or professional level cameras for normal consumptions, it's incredible, right? And that is because we have such a dedicated image signal processor or a camera core inside our chips, and we focused on understanding that migration, right? Same thing with 4G, right? A lot of us asked us and said, why are you adding 4G? Like, who needs such high speeds? And I still remember talking about saying, think of a use case where you're going to try to download a movie before you get on a long flight. You've forgotten about it. And everybody said, no, come on. Where are you going to download a movie? And, here I am today, exactly the kind of thing I do myself, right? Before I jump on a long flight, I'm trying to download a movie. So it's those kind of things that, when you look back and you think about, oh, back then it didn't sound as cool, but today everybody's using it. So it's the kind of stuff at Qualcomm that we like to do. And then I can talk about this in any of the businesses that we're in.
And in the factory process, if you had to describe it to a layman from zero to how a chip comes out, off the system, can you quickly describe it for us?
Yeah. So it's actually pretty straightforward, right? We design silicon in simple lingo. We have microprocessors and we have designs. Okay. We build the SoC.
What's an SoC for the audience? You'll have to really dumb this down.
This is perfect. System on a chip.
Yeah.
And so you have multiple transistors. Think close to about a few billion transistors that are inside a chip.
On a small chip.
On a small little chip. And you have these chips that actually we tape this out to a foundry which actually manufactures the chip, right? And so when you get the silicon back, we do our own software. We do all of the testing in Qualcomm. And then the fun part is we help a lot of our partners, whether it's our OEM partners like the Oppo, Vivo, Xiaomi's on the mobile side, or Samsung, or you talk about Dell, HP, Lenovo's and stuff. We help them with like camera tuning and how do you make the image quality be incredible. And so a lot of those features that you see, it's funny because back in the day, I think it's more like 10, 15 years back, we talked about bokeh, right? And we had to go tell people that bokeh is actually a very cool thing and background blur is important. And now we all take it for granted, right? So the kind of things we evolve with, so you start with silicon, you build the software, you create differentiating all these experiences that resonate with consumers and stuff. That's the kind of stuff we do. And like I said, once you see the product in someone's hands and you see somebody using that chip and stuff, it just feels very gratifying.
You're turning sand to memes in a way. But that's superb. So one of the questions I had, right, and this is a question I've been meaning to ask you since I knew we were going to be chatting. What is this? I mean, the evolution of computing since the time you were around. And I'll tell you my first interaction with the computer, right? I had this one of a really old computer at home, and I remember playing Road Rash on it, right? I don't know if everybody remembers Road Rash, but I was playing Road Rash on it. It had, some, if I don't remember the details, but some MBs worth of RAM, right? It had maybe like a gig worth of storage. I had a floppy disk worth, like I don't remember the exact numbers because it's been so long ago. And I still remember the dial-up modem I had, right? You've been around since even before that. To see it go from there to here must have been phenomenal. But I'm sure because you've seen those last 10 years, and now I know nobody can predict the future. I would still love to know your predictions on where this AI race is going. In fact, I would love to know where do you think 2024 is going with the AI race, and then, how does that change computing, and then where does that end up in 2025, 2026, and beyond?
We'll talk about. I'll get to your question. We'll talk about floppy disks, and since you've reminded me of how I should remember them, I don't know if you remember the older floppy disk. You probably don't. You're very young. You'd have to put that big floppy disk inside and then actually lock the thing. And then you had the small... Thing, right? No, it was even before that. You actually had to turn the knob down. See, I told you. Yeah. And then, so the newer ones were much smaller that came in. But anyways, it's a good reminder of how technology has evolved. Your question around AI and stuff, right? Look, in general with AI, there's going to be so much personalization. It's all about driving efficiency. It's trying to drive meaningful acceleration of things that we do in our daily lives, right? And there isn't a single industry that I believe is not going to get affected by AI in a positive way, right? You talk about manufacturing, you talk about code generation. Like, I'll give you an example, right? If AI can help you debug code or help accelerate your products get to market, it can help solve problems for you in a much more meaningful way. If you have a manufacturing line, for example, and you're on a stop ship because there's a problem, and if AI is going to help you debug that very quickly, help you understand, we're talking pure dollars at the end of the day, right? So there isn't a single industry, or if you're talking about law, and it's going to take tons and tons of documents, summarize them for you and do things. So there isn't a single industry that's not going to get affected. I think for us, we believe this is just the beginning, right? And we've taken a bet in terms of AI, talking about where we think these use cases will run. For example, the newer word, if you've heard, is a neural processing unit, which is the NPU. We all know about CPUs. We believe the last, 20 years back, it was the decade of CPUs. The last 10 years were the decade of GPUs. And, we believe that, the next decade will be all about the NPUs. And we took this bet 7 years ago when we added our first NPU. So the way I would categorize that is when you can run certain tasks with much more, that are more efficient or that are going to be more capable in terms of giving you higher performance, you can actually offload them to run on this neural processor. And you still have your CPU and GPU to do other tasks that you would normally do. So the world of AI is going to change and depends on where you are, right? From whether it's video editing, and obviously you guys do a ton of that stuff, or whether it's audio or any of the use cases. I think the industry is set to change, which is why as Qualcomm, we're helping accelerate and help developers get to that stage faster, right? So we're providing them tools. We've created something, just as an example, something called an AI Hub, right? The models are changing so rapidly. People are trying to create models that we want developers to be able to have a simple access to all these models and not have to worry about optimizing to each and every individual model. So for us, it's all about optimizations. And like I said before, it's all about driving technology. And we want to make this as ubiquitous as we can to developers. So,
but you do think it's going to be personalized and on a computer or on your phone?
Absolutely. The whole point of running on-device AI and the fact that, we talked about, I'll talk about Snapdragon X Elite. We haven't talked about that yet, which is the PC chip we've announced more recently with the X Elite and the Plus. We have a 45 TOPS. For what it's worth, it's trillion operations per second. Think of that as just a very powerful processor. And you could actually run close to 13 billion parameter models on device, right? And so
real time,
yes. So you're talking about running many of the models or a lot of the works that we talked about, whether it's code gen, whether it's any of the use cases I talked about, being able to run it on device, right? So this is going to start evolving. And granted, there will be hybrid cases. If you have a model that's greater than 13, it's partially going to go hybrid. And if it's a lot larger, of course, it's going to go to the cloud. And over time, models will get quantized and they'll shrink in size. And
can you explain what quantization is?
It's think of it as taking a model and reducing its size while still maintaining its accuracy, right? So think of it as a simple way of just taking something, being able to run it in a smaller size, and while protecting its accuracy.
So you feel like the models are going to be crunched down and then be brought on device, and that is going to give all of us that God in a box, right? Without us having to sort of rely on the cloud and have to pay subscription. Like the thing I'm super excited about is the end of subscriptions.
Yeah.
Okay, now that's a personal opinion, but I feel like with the mobile phones, with the laptops, it just feels like we're ending the era of subscription, because you needed subscription because you wanted these tools, and these tools were expensive and somebody built them out, and you'd have to pay for cloud service, whatever. You use an online video editor, you're paying something to offset some of their costs. But the minute you bring that locally, the only cost you have is electricity, right? And there's a lot of open source tools by people who really want to contribute to the ecosystem. They're tools by you folks and the partners that you worked with. They're saying, well, you want an alternative to a background eraser? We have that on the, on the laptops and the mobile phone. So I think that part is pretty impressive, because I can't wait for a world where I flip open my phone and then I have everything inside my phone. I don't need to use the cloud. I can be in the middle of nowhere with no Wi-Fi, no internet, and still be able to, get advice on how do I do CPR, right? I think that's pretty impressive. But yeah, I mean, for a very long time, I've known Qualcomm as a mobile chipset company. When did that change?
When I say when you also think about us as a mobile company, like I said, we've always been in communications. For us, a lot of the adjacent businesses that we talk about, whether it's XR, whether it's PCs, it's a very natural progression for us. Because when you think of the underlying technology, be it the CPU or the graphics core, which is the GPU, or the camera, the audio, the video cores, we've built those in-house, right? And so we have a lot of strength in those areas. And so for us, it's just a natural progression as we go to other businesses and try to help disrupt the space. And I'll speak more about the PCs as an example. Honestly, Varun, PCs haven't seen excitement in many years in the Windows space, right? There just hasn't been a PC that has created excitement around it. And so we believe right from simple things. You just talked about battery life and power, and you said, well, the only thing I have to worry about is electricity. You get huge benefits with the X Elite, with performance per watt. And
what is the X Elite here?
A Snapdragon X Elite. It is the new processor platform that we just announced. It's mainly targeted towards laptops. We have more than 7 partners like Dell, HP, Lenovo, Microsoft, Samsung, Acer, Asus that have all announced devices with us. And there's more than 22 platforms available in market now. So all of these OEMs have launched platforms. Microsoft has announced Copilot Plus, which is the next generation of experiences in Windows. And today they run exclusively on the X Elite and the X Plus platforms. And X Plus and X Elite are just 2 platforms within the X series of Qualcomm. So I highly encourage all of your viewers to try these platforms. They're pretty compelling.
Wow. I mean, so you really bullish on the PC race then? This was something I wasn't familiar with before we started speaking. I didn't know that you were so gung-ho about the PC ecosystem and especially the laptop ecosystem. How do you see that evolving in India? Like, how do you see an Indian saying, I'm going to use this for X or Y? Like, what do you think the use cases are where they actually come to you guys?
There's multiple ways to look at it. First, I think we all know that a market like India, the first thing, even today, not just India, but even outside, the first feedback you get from everybody is, I want long battery life, right? So first use case is it meets exactly what every user will ask for is, I don't want to be able to charge this thing at least once a day, if not a couple of days. Second, I think a lot of AI use cases we talked about, obviously very specific to India. And this is where developers are going to start to build different apps, different models, all for local consumers and stuff. So I'll give you an example. We talked about, at launch, we talked about DaVinci Resolve. And so since you use a lot of these applications for editing and stuff, Adobe has talked about their applications are native on Snapdragon. And so you can actually start to use these models locally and start to use these apps
You're talking about
locally.
things like DaVinci's Magic Mask,
Magic Mask,
right?
yes.
Where you're able to cut the person out of the background.
Yeah. Any of the, or any of the photo editing applications and stuff. We've talked about Luminar Neo and other applications exactly like that, right? And you can see the benefit. And we're talking significant leaps over relative to what you can do today with other architectures. And so the benefit is that it's going to get customized. I think a lot of we have more than 50 retailers that are going to that have launched devices with us globally, and so India is obviously one of them as well. I wish I could share a little bit more. I'm going to tease it a little bit. There's some more exciting stuff just in the next few weeks that we'll talk about, but it's pretty exciting. We'll have a very focused approach towards India as well.
You also told me something very interesting. Your job title also says gaming, right? So I've been a gamer all my life, and I'm pretty excited to know what you have planned in store for gaming and where you see that evolve, right? Like Jensen, I think from NVIDIA says this very interesting thing where he says, pixels will be generated, not rendered, right? And if you've seen some of the new models, right? The Kling, if you've seen Sora, it looks like we can generate videos on the fly, but it turns out you might have this situation where when you press the forward button, it's generating the video on the fly, right? We've seen some of this with, something like this has happened with, cloud gaming, Stadia, if you remember. Now, it's been retired, but,
right.
Just being able to generate things on the fly and play games like that, I think is phenomenal. But you probably have a much deeper view of gaming. You know the numbers. I would love for the audience to know as well, what are your insights from gaming? How do people actually game on their phones and their computers? And where do you see that changing with AI?
Yeah. I think overall, gaming obviously one of the fastest growing markets, several $billion of revenue every year, just from games in store, in game purchases, just pretty incredible and crazy market on how it's grown. I think what has more taken off in mobile gaming, obviously, Snapdragon has a lot of gaming called the Snapdragon X Elite, Elite Gaming, not X Elite, sorry, Snapdragon Elite Gaming. And we'll have something very similar with Snapdragon X Elite in PCs as well. With AI, I think we should just expect, you highlighted a bunch of stuff, what I would have said anyways, which is taking a lot of models, working with third-party developers and optimizing them. Today, we're more focused, when it comes to PCs, we're more focused on casual gaming. Obviously, we're not focused on high-end creators markets, or we're not focused on high-end AAA games and stuff. While we are working on it, it's not something that I would say that consumers should focus on with PCs today with X Elite. But obviously, casual games and stuff will run really, really well. Outside of PCs and phones, we also have dedicated platforms that are specific towards handheld gaming, as an example. So Sony has launched one of their handheld gaming devices with a Qualcomm platform where you can play with the PlayStation. And so overall, I think we see the market moving.
And the Quest as well, right?
The Quest, of course. With XR, obviously, we have Quest has the Snapdragon platforms. And so we're able to better render with the handheld gaming platforms. And obviously, again, it's a handheld device, so you get the benefits of battery life and stuff. So overall, we're pretty bullish on how the gaming market is going to move forward.
And why does a company like, and this is something that's always confused me, right? Like, why, I understand how the OEM work, all the OEMs work, right? I understand how the Vivo and the Oppos of the world work. Why are you building a consumer story for Qualcomm as well? Like, this is a business question, right? Like, as a business, if you're a B2, I assume Qualcomm India is a B2B business, right? Why the play on consumer?
No, when you think about it, it's every consumer is extremely aware today, right?
They're doing their research.
Consumer knows what they want. Even when you think about a consumer that is, or an employee that is walking into an enterprise, knows exactly what laptop they want. We want the consumer to be aware of what Snapdragon is, right? There are many markets where the consumer in phones totally understand what Snapdragon is, and we want them to be aware of X Elite as well, because the benefits that it brings are very natural to how they see phones, right? When they think of phones, they think of Qualcomm as a premium tier platform. I get the best experience possible. We want them to have the exact same feeling when they start thinking about this in PCs. And PC is a very different market. Notebooks get sold through almost close to 50% of the market gets sold through big companies, enterprises, in other words. The other 50% gets sold through consumers. And even within that, consumers either buy online now or walk into stores like in India through retail outlets, whether it's Chroma or Flipkart or any of the stores. So the consumer is aware of what they want. So we want the consumer to understand the benefits because we're very focused on consumer needs versus specs and feeds. We always will focus on making sure we have the best experience possible.
And one question here on the mobile phones, right? I think on the mobile phones, you probably as a company also have insights onto what consumers really want. I know that 5 years ago, they really wanted like a bigger screen, right? Then know it shifted to cameras. With the chipsets, what is it that they really want?
I think the underlying technology is what we support in the chipset, right? Even when you think of, I talked about bokeh or background blur and stuff, consumers don't even understand where that is running. We've always had some of these things run on like a hexagon processor, which is, think of it as a older version of NPU or a neural processor or more AI in simple terms. And so the way we think about all of this stuff is even the phone is going to get a lot more personal now, just as the PC is going to get a lot more personal with AI. It's going to have more contextual aware. It's going to understand awareness. It's going to be more aware. It's going to predict things for you in a manner that you don't even know. It's going to better understand the user.
So tell you the next word you're going to type.
Exactly. That's definitely where we are today. But I think it's going to get a lot more intelligent in terms of, what you're trying to use, managing your schedules, managing your personal calendar.
So an agent on the phone.
An agent on the phone, right? So I think it's just going to start getting more personal with the user. And especially as we talk about AI and NPU and stuff, that's just going to see more and more advantages of running locally.
So I think to summarize, you're looking at this future, the next 3-4 years to be the era of personalization. You think that personalization is going to happen somewhat on the cloud, but mostly on consumer devices, laptops, phones, PCs, EVs, whatever it is. You think it's going to happen on the device, and you think running these models up to a 13B are going to be possible on the device, and you feel over time, bigger models are going to be sandwiched down.
Correct.
I'm summarizing the entire thing,
correct.
Right? Bigger models are going to be sandwiched down, and therefore on your phone, you're just going to be able to make 3 taps and then get the answers you want, which gives you godlike intelligence at your fingertips, and it's such a beautiful world to be in. Right? So I'm super bullish on kind of the future of where I think technology is going, and I'm also like, this is actually my first interaction with somebody from Qualcomm, right? Like I'm talking about in the sense we are here for the first time, sort of listening to how Qualcomm thinks about this, how Qualcomm thinks about customers. It's always been a behind-the-scenes company, in my playbook, right? And I'm glad you're coming to the forefront and saying this is important, and we are sort of sitting behind the scenes powering this. And I think consumers today make informed choices. So you're right that, just like when I go to a doctor, I would have done my research and then go to the doctor, right? Same with buying anything today. I think there's a lot of comparisons research that people do and then eventually, come out and win. So we've summarized this, but I have one question to the summary. Let's say everything is running locally on your device. We've heard a lot of leaks, right? Somebody stores photos on their phone. It eventually appears on the internet. Privacy seems to be something really hard. Now I know cloud has, there's an illusion of privacy everywhere, right? Anything that goes on the cloud, there's like a X% chance that also could get into trouble, or that also could appear on the internet. But how do you think privacy will evolve with personalization? I'll tell you why. Sometimes when I chat with Claude on my phone, sometimes when I chat with Gemini or Claude or whoever on my phone, it always eventually ends up with me asking it a question which I don't want other people to see. It could be a personal question. Right? What do you think about death or whatever it is, right?
Sure.
Different people have different questions. And some of that I don't want appearing on the internet, right? Or maybe not me, but most people. And I assume now it's happening on the phone. It's safer because it's not going to a server somewhere. But how do you think privacy is going to evolve in the era of personalized AI?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think one of the big benefits, Varun, of running stuff on device, we talk about the word on device, is the fact that when you take the 45 tops and when you take all of this AI stuff, we talked about 13 billion parameters, but the core of that is 3 things. One is immediacy. You get instant results. Second is privacy. Is you're able to get stuff that is private. It doesn't go to the cloud, exactly to your point. And third is just personalization. Is how it is able to better understand. So the fact that you've searched for a few things, it is going to start understanding the user a lot better. So it's going to know exactly what you're thinking. Simple things in terms of tonal, like how do you write emails? How do you like to send messages? What kind of tone do you like to use? Do you like more aggression? Do you like more passive way of sending? So all of these things are going to play a very important role, and more so obviously with when we talk about privacy and security. Running stuff on device, it's always going to stay on device. It's never going to go to the cloud, and that's the benefit of having an NPU that is so powerful that can run stuff locally on the device.
So you're saying it's actually like an air gap, and the air gap, I didn't think of it like that. I think that's actually that, in my opinion, that'll actually be the key selling point for most mobile chipsets or whatever, right? Like or any personal device chipsets, which is it's on your device. It's not going to the cloud. We have a gap, right? And you can text your AI whatever you want, and it stays between you and your phone. And if you lose your phone, you have a pass key, so you're at least protected there. So I didn't think of it like that. That's enlightening.
Or your PCs now.
One last question I want to ask you here is, what is the consumer feedback for your X Elites or the phones, chipsets? What's the consumer feedback been like so far?
I think overall everybody thinks of Qualcomm Snapdragon equals premium experiences, right? So when you walk into a store and you say, I want a Snapdragon, you know you're going to get the best experience possible. We want them to think very similar when they think of PCs, right? We've announced two platforms, the X Elite as well as the X Plus, and you should expect both of these will have very similar experiences. And so one of the things we've done, by the way, just to highlight between the X Elite and the Plus, we've kept the same amount of AI performance, which is the 45 tops. It just tells you the kind of bet we're making in terms of the future, right? So you can see other areas where we've tried to bring the cost.
Can you break down tops for people listening?
It's a trillion operations per second. It's just how fast you're able to run a particular AI workload on device. Very simplistic way to look at it.
Yeah, I think I'm so excited for the future. And honestly, I've had a long relationship with Qualcomm, even though, we haven't done anything, because I bought Qualcomm stuff, right? So I think it's just exciting to be in a world where, going back to that original question, right, of us sitting with the floppy and the old PC and the modem, nobody could have predicted this is the world we're going to be in, where the thing on your phone is just trumping, something that used to be best in class back then, and all that happening at your fingertips. It's a great world to be in. People become so much more productive. Everything becomes personalized. We're going to have AI friends and agents doing everything for us. And to see you guys silently power some of this is phenomenal. And hopefully, we keep in touch over the long run.
Oh,
so
definitely.
Every time there's something new, please let us know. I would love to use some of your stuff. And
definitely.
Vice versa. If there's something we can help you with, happy to do it.
It's great. You guys are doing some incredible stuff, Arun. I mean, I've followed a lot of what you do. You do some amazing stuff. So we'd love to partner with you on doing a lot of these fun things.
Thank you, Kedar.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on the show.
Thanks.
Bye.